This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN Network. And joining me right now is Brandon Taylor. He is the president and COO of OneSoft Solutions, a publicly traded company. The symbol is OSS on the TSX Venture and OSSIF on the OTCQB. Brandon, great to see you again. How you doing?
Good to see you, Robert. How are you doing? Doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. It's not too late to say Happy New Year, right? Like we can still say Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since in 2021, right?
I
So
suppose so.
okay, all right, we'll go with it. But last time we did an interview that we published was on October 13th, 2020. So I know the company has announced a few new customer wins and your Q3 2020 results. So love to hear an update. What's been going on at OneSoft since then.
Yeah. So lots of it. It seems like it wasn't that long ago because we've been super busy, which is exciting for us. Like you said, we did get a couple of customer wins. We're actually in process. I think I've spoke with you quite a bit about that. We'd spent a lot of time on an onboarding process. So that was in the end of last year. We started with them in January, and we actually have we're forecasted that somewhere in mid-March they'll have been onboarded and start using our solution and stop using their internal. So we've really spent a lot of time on onboarding, and they'll always evolve and we'll get more. So what we feel really good about though is that we're starting to get more cadence with these customers when we engage, and that they can actually start getting benefits right away, right? In fact, last week, I think one of the customers loaded one of their new logs into our solution and stopped, doing their existing process. So that's super exciting for us. And we'll keep iterating on that. We've spent a lot of time in product. We're just wrapped up kind of an internal initiative that we had around the user experience within the solution. And we're just getting ready to roll that into the product roadmap. So, as we go with the objective as that we go through into H2 of this calendar year, kind of in our roadmap where it is now, and that always shifts. But we'd like to kind of keep the product focused on kind of a more self-service so that we can really start scaling. Beyond just the customers, I think the bigger thing that we're quite excited about is we have a lot of production trials in the go right now. So, and they cover the whole gamut, the spectrum of, smaller all the way to quite large operators. And really around the world. I think we have 3 in Australia, multiple happen in South America, EMEA. So, they're happening kind of all over the place. So we're quite excited about that. Product is getting the footprint gets wider and wider. We get our customers are coming in and say, hey, can you help us with us? So our innovation lab has multiple projects that we're working on right now to kind of prove out end to end. And then if those prove out, they'll roll in to product, as well as just dev. And since October, we released another feature set within the product so we can ingest another data set. It's around to kind of start that non-piggable pipe cathodic protection where they can't run the pigs. So that data's in. We have operators who are loading that data, and we've aligned it with the data that we've done, and our data science is starting to play with it. Probably the biggest thing that you'll see probably that we're making a lot of movement on is now that we have enough data, we have in draft right now a couple of white papers around growth and what that means for the industry. So we're really starting to see some quantifiable probabilistic models around growth of corrosion in pipelines. And our data science team is really starting to kind of get to the final stage of that. So we're hoping to be able to produce some white papers that have an impact on the industry, I think is probably the most exciting thing.
Very good. I mean, what would you say is the one thing that, we got investor audience, right? That's the people who are listening to this right now. What would you say is the one thing that if you had to highlight of all that update that you said, that you think that they would probably be most keen to want to know more about, or that you're most proud of to present to them?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing for us when we kicked off the year was about scaling, moving into that commercialization stage and being able to scale it, right, faster and more customers. So I think onboarding is very significant from the perspective, this is a pretty laggard industry from the perspective, and a lot of manual processes and Excel sheets and all of this stuff. And the fact that we can take them from that to literally a modern SaaS cloud solution operate, and they're Fortune 500 companies. So it's, they tend to move slower just in general, just because they have a lot of people and a lot of processes and all of that. So I think that that is probably one of the biggest, most exciting things, because it kind of shows that as we go, we're going to be able to scale this, right? And for us, that's as I've always said, it's about customer acquisition and SIM ARR, our solution, ARR, recurring revenue here. So I think that's probably the most exciting thing, is that shows us that we can do that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that onboarding process is definitely a challenge as well. As you're going to commercialization, it's just optimizing that process. So how is that going? Have you already started to optimize it even better as you bring on larger and larger customers?
Yeah. So what our goal was, and we're documenting every one. It's okay, like we need to go do some product here, or we need to change these steps, so that's happening. So the next customer that we get, we'll take those learnings and we'll do it more and more and more. Again, all towards the objective in H2 is that we can get kind of almost to a self-service, meaning our people don't have to engage. We can have a start trial right off our website, and that's when we think we could really hit scale, from the perspective that we do these virtual production trials where they're sending us data. They could just hit start trial. It'll stand up an instant automatically for them. They could drop their own data and next, and then start socializing it internally. And we could have that happen, hundreds of operators at a time doing that. So that's what I mean by when I say onboarding, is where we're kind of trying to move the needle. Not easy, by the way.
I can imagine.
It's a challenge. But
I would say, that's probably the one thing that's keeping you up at night. It's like, oh, we're ramping up sales, we're growing. All right, now we got to get them on the platform. Right. That has to happen too, right? So I can imagine. Well, from there, Brandon, this is my favorite question I ask at the end of each interview. From what you can tell us, what would you say then are, here, I'll adjust it a little bit. From what you can tell us, what are some things that investors should look for now moving forward?
Yeah, so last year, pre-COVID, we've given guidance, and I talked to you about this in October, on doubling revenue. We're actually starting, to see that from an operator perspective, that we're re-engaging with operators who've gone dark on us on COVID. So COVID hit, okay, when we can meet in person, let's get back together. Now we're still not able to go on site and meet, but we're engaging with them now. So we're starting to see pretty good movement on that, to where I think that we'll start getting back to kind of that comfort level where we might give guidance again on, hey, we see no reason why we won't be able to double revenue, right? So that for us is probably the most exciting thing, is we're starting to see quite a bit of traction. Microsoft's really helping drive that with us right now. There's a lot of digital transformation. As these organizations came out of COVID, I think that they've now realized that, hey, we got to get more digital. And we got to start thinking about this a lot deeper. And they've really, just think about Teams and Zoom and all this stuff. So they've really engaged with Microsoft, and Microsoft kind of knows what we've done. So they've actually brought us in and said, hey, if we want a quick win, OneSoft is where we could go get that pretty quickly on your integrity team, right? And start driving, Microsoft cloud consumption for Microsoft. So that's really been exciting to see.
Very good. All right. Well, with that, Brandon, where can our audience go and find more information on OneSoft?
You can go to www.onesoft.ca.
Perfect. Brandon, as always, thank you so much for joining me today. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Good. Thank you for having us.